Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? When I was trying to get this podcast off the ground, I had so many questions. How do I record an episode? Where do I find background music? How do I get my show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other places people like to listen? Where do I find advertisers? The answer to every one of those questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, distributing, and monetizing your podcast. And best of all, it's 100% free and 100% ridiculously easy to use. Let me tell y'all. Everybody keeps asking me, what do I do to podcast? I'm telling you, the answer is Anchor. They created my RSS feed. They gave me my first 2 sponsors that you're now hearing on this podcast. I want you to know that I believe in Anchor. I've grown with this platform since February, and I'm going to continuously grow with this platform. So if you always wanted to start a podcast, go to anchor.fm/start to join me and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast. You are now listening to the Walk by Faith podcast. I'm your host, Jasmine Smith, aka The Pretty Plug. I'm on a mission to tell the lost story that combines faith in God and success here on this earth. The world often separates faith and entrepreneurship as if it was mutually exclusive. But I assure you it's not. I interview the following types of people: entrepreneurs, business women, and businessmen climbing the corporate ladder, founders of nonprofit organizations, college students following their passions, and also artists on the rise. They are movers and shakers in this generation, and I intend to plug you in week after week with content that inspires and educates you to be all that you are called to be. Thank you for tuning in, and now for this week's episode. On today's show, we have a very special guest, none other than Miss Danielle Smith, down in Prairie View, Texas. And we'll be covering the topic, Foster Kids Have Faith Too. Now, Danielle, not many people know that you have such a unique past. But during this podcast, we're going to unpack it. We're going to talk about who you are and how you have overcome adversity and following your dreams. So let's hop right in. Danielle, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. What about yourself?
I'm doing good, girl. I'm straight off of work, but I'm excited to highlight you. I'm excited to hear about your story. So, Danielle, we don't even have to wait too much. Can you tell us who you are, where you're from, and what you're studying in school?
Alrighty. So basically, my name is Danielle Smith. I currently attend PVAMU University. I major in sociology, and I minor in legal studies. Sociology, I chose that major because that's really like my life in one sentence. The definition that most people are familiar with of sociology is the systematic study of the relationship between individuals and society. So if anyone knows me, they know that I consider myself a perspective thinker, which is basically what sociology is. Now, my all-time favorite professor in the sociology department is Dr. Robert Jones, and his definition is thinking prospectively to see and understand the connections between individuals and the broader social context in which they live. And that is literally my life in one sentence.
Wow, Danielle, you're giving it to us tonight. So I just want to know, how do you embrace the entrepreneurial spirit, and what have you done in college? I heard from a grapevine that you started a nonprofit organization. Tell us a little bit about that and what makes you an entrepreneur.
Okay, so first things first, my first one, this is something that I just came up with probably about 4 months ago. I was just sitting in my room and I was like, man, my big thing that I want to do is just foster care awareness, just make that more aware, because a lot of people aren't really talking about it. So I came up with an acronym for REDEEM, and basically it's not the first letter of each word, but it's the letter of what the acronym stands for is within the acronym, if that makes sense. So it's called Survive the System. And then in Survive, the R is capitalized, the E is capitalized, the D, the E, and then in System, it's the E and the M. And basically, that's my foster care awareness movement. And with that, it's like I want to eventually turn this into something where it can be like #Redeem foster care awareness movement. And I just really wanted to come up with something because I know my biggest way that I will be able to get this out there as much as possible would be through social media. So it's called #Redeem, Survive the System. And yeah, and that's my first one. And then this is another thing that I started on campus probably about 5 months ago. It's called Sister Talk. And basically it's a woman support group. We met for the whole month of April, every single Wednesday in the library, and we just talked. And the purpose of that was just to come up with an environment where people know at the end of the day, this is where I can come to just let everything out. And a lot of things have been going on just on campus, so that's why I wanted to make sure that there was something available for just women, for us to just be together and talk. And then for the upcoming year in the fall, this is something that's going to be a support group through PVAMU University, their counseling services. And last but not least, for 7 years straight, I did track. And this was just like my escape route. So basically I said, you know what? I've been on my health kick. I said, you know what? We're going to get back to it. So I was like, okay, I'm not about to go run for the actual track team. So why not start a track club through PVAMU University's recreational sports? And this will be kicking off the fall of 2019.
Okay. Well, listen, girl, you're moving. I know Prairie View has a gym on their campus, from your sister talks to your track club to, your organization called Redeem, which is Survive the System. So a part of who you are, it is a very, very intimate story. And when you shared it to me, I was just in awe. I was like, wow, Danielle, you never really know who you're talking to or what someone has been through by just looking at them. And I think a lot of times we may take for granted the experiences that we all share by just simply not asking questions, not really diving into the relationships that we have with people. And also for the person that has a story to share, maybe they're just not ready, right? And so on today, I know you're taking a risk to share your story, and I'm so thankful that you chose the Walk by Faith show to, tell your story. But can you explain to the audience why this is a risk for you and why this is not something you're just broadcasting loudly and, not that you aren't proud of it, but it's just something that you've held very near and dear to yourself?
Yes. So people think I'm like really shy, but I'm actually not. And this is just like a topic that, I be trying to act all hard, but when I get to talking about this, I do get really emotional because I've came a long way. And I just feel like somebody out there that really has been through similar things that I've been through or the same thing along the lines of it, it don't matter, that really just wants to share their story. And maybe they're going to scroll on the Apple podcast and just randomly see, foster care, kids have faith too. And I just want this to be an outlet for other people to help them.
Thank you for sharing, why it's so important for you to share that part, right? You're normally a shy person or people think you're shy, but you definitely want to raise the awareness of the foster care child system. And I want to now just segue into what was it like growing up as a foster kid in that system and how has it impacted you today?
Was probably the biggest blessing that I could have ever had. my experiences wasn't always good, especially being tossed from about 7 different foster homes up until I got adopted. But that situation, it didn't make me, but it developed me into the person that I am today. And so it's like now people don't understand me. And it's like with me, if I put my hands onto something like a craft or something, I'm going to keep working at it so hard until it's just as close as perfection as possible. And part of that is just from growing up, I never really just had someone to always to be for, just really anybody in my life, period, up until I got adopted. So it's like now the person I am today, I'm independent. I'm working 2 jobs while still on the dean's list and just out here doing big things, all because of this. I'm not saying it made me, but it just definitely helped develop me into this strong individual that I am today. And for the longest, it took me a long time to get comfortable with myself. But then after I started praying and just going to God about different things, he just helped me realize that, you know what, Danielle, this is you. You're a hard worker. Naturally, somebody can do something, but I'm always going to do it more because that's just what kind of heart that I have. I just want to do everything more and go above and beyond for people.
Okay, Danielle. So at this moment, I'm going to really use my journalism tactics. And I'm going to ask you to describe an experience that you had in the foster care system. And you and I talked about it. I don't want to spoil it for the audience, but could you please describe an experience that you had, which really, you know, we need to show why America's foster care child system needs to be improved because of what you went through.
Yes. So in 2007 was when I got adopted. But like I said earlier, up until 2007 when I got adopted, I was tossed from 7 different foster homes. So the first foster home I was ever in, well, actually, no, rewind. So from the beginning, I actually stayed with my grandmother, my mom's mom, but then she got sick and she couldn't take care of me or my biological brother and sister. So then that's when we all 3 of us got tossed into the system. And from there, up until 2007, that was where the 7 different foster homes had came about. One of the situations that I've been through, I could never forget. And actually, I didn't find this out until recently when I got a hold of my case file. And basically, that's what you can get. Anybody that's been out of the system, you can request that from the state. And you can literally see all the details of every single thing that you've ever been through. So I found out even more about myself. So one of the situations, this was my first foster home. I was literally there for only about, I don't know, maybe 3 months or so. And I had to get removed. And at the time I was like probably 8 months or so, or no, I was 1 year old. And I had to get removed. Basically from going over my case file, all I saw was that I was basically a year old, but the size of almost a newborn baby because that person wasn't feeding me. And so then it's like from there, I got tossed into another foster care system, another foster care home. And it was the same thing. I wasn't eating. And it just became a constant thing. And so it was the 3rd foster home that I was in. I stayed there for probably about 8 months. And it started off great, but then it ended off rough. It was like, from reading over my case file, it was exactly like 5 children in one house. So at the time, I'm like 2, 3 years old, can't really do nothing by myself. So I'm trying to cook, I guess. I don't know how this happened, but I got burned by hot boiling water. somehow I believe I was by the stove, and then the water tilted over onto me. And it's by the grace of God, if you look at me, you'll probably never see it. And those marks, and I have small marks from it, but that's just something that I really did not find out until I actually got a hold of my actual case file. And it's just like, it was really a constant thing, and this really does show how bad the foster care system is, because all they do is toss you from one home to another home to another home to another home in hopes of finding a good foster family. But it seems like now that's a harder thing to do because people are only in it for the money. But those are just a few situations that I kept running into. But it was the last foster home that I was in. I was in that foster home for 2 years up until I got adopted. And the lady, I actually just went to visit her last summer, and this was the best experience of my life. Her name was Deborah Bradley, and she had me for those 2 years, and basically she helped me really grow, because she said when she got me, I wasn't where I should be. So at the time, I'm like 5, or it was 4 or 5. Mentally, like, I just wasn't there. Like, from me being in previous foster homes where they wouldn't feed me, when I got to her house, it's like I automatically thought that she was going to do the same thing. So she would go into my room when I'm gone, and then she would find like a lot of food under my pillow or under my bed. That's just me just trying to hoard food because I don't know when I'm going to eat again. And I saw her last summer. That was a great situation. I met 2 of my other foster siblings those are actually her biological children. Their name is Kia and Jasmine. I met them, and there was a picture that we took when we were younger, and we actually redid the picture when we were older. And I have that picture. So it was just a great experience. And yeah.
Thanks, Danielle, for, shedding some light on it. Like, some people go into the foster care child system basically for the money. They're not really in it to make sure that the child and their well-being is going well. I remember you told me about a time where you had to hide food.
Yes.
Do you want to explain that situation to the audience?
Yes. So from the previous foster homes that I had been in, I wasn't eating. That was like the main thing, where I wasn't eating. They just wasn't feeding me anything. And that's why you would see me when I was younger. I was so small. And so over time, what I just started doing, anytime I would get food, I would put it in a bag. I would hide it to where nobody could hide it. So once they would go to sleep, I'd sneak into the kitchen, some kind of how, and give me some food and hide it. And it was that last foster care home that I was in, the really good one. That's when I wouldn't say I got caught, but she was actually feeding me, but I was still hiding that food. So she would ask me, like, hey, Danielle, why are you still, hiding food? And then it got to the point where I actually had to sit in front of a counselor because they thought that something was like with me. And it's not that it was, it's just that I was so used to not eating. I'm thinking, like, you know what? If they're not going to give me the food there, even though they were giving it to me, they could stop tomorrow. Because I was just so used to people just breaking their promises with me. Like, here's a meal, but you never know when your real meal was going to be your next meal. So I said, okay, I'm going to outsmart them and just keep on hiding this food. And, yeah, I'm not going to say I still do that now, but looking back on it, that situation, that really made me aware of a lot more stuff now, because now, of course, I'm not going to be hoarding food around, but it's just like, I'm like 4 or 5 years old. The fact that I even thought to just hide food like that just showed the independency then, and how it's just helped develop me into who I am today.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Danielle, again. I mean, I know those type of stories, it may be hard to share or hard to talk about, like you having to hide food because you didn't know where your next meal would come. Or just the fact that, you know, you were underdeveloped because people were not feeding you. No, a lot of us, and again, I'm trying to keep everything within context to this conversation, but a lot of us may go and we give money to maybe other countries, but there are people here that really need our help and our support, and there are people here that don't have a parent. You know, I know we may go and adopt others, but there are people here that really, really need a mom and a dad, you know? And I want to also segue and ask you, what was the first time that you met your birth mother? And could you tell us just how that experience went?
So I actually never got the opportunity to meet my foster mom, but in 15 or 16, my biological grandmother is the one who took care of me when I was younger. I have a biological brother and sister, and basically they kind of kept in contact with a few of my family, our biological family members. So one of them is my cousin, and so that's how they found out that my biological grandmother had passed. So we all met up to the funeral, and I thought, you know, my mom would be there, but she wasn't. And, you know, I had my hopes up to an extent, but once I found out after talking to more family members that she mentally wasn't stable, so that probably wasn't the best predicament for her to be in. So it was my freshman year, right before it was literally the day right before it was move-in day. And basically what I had decided, I said, you know what? I'm about to start this new chapter in my life. Not that I'm not going to talk about foster care anymore. It's not that I'm not going to talk about my past. It's not that. I'm going to always keep that. But I want to close off this chapter. So that urgency to at least talk to my foster care mom, or not my foster care, talk to my biological mother or my biological father. So I called my cousin and the one that had kept in contact with my brother and sister. And I was just like, hey, this is Danielle. I was wondering if you had any phone number where I could potentially, you know, reach out to my mom or anything. I feel like I'm ready to take the necessary step. So she gave me a number to my aunt. So I called my aunt and I was just like, hey, this is Danielle, you know. Same conversation, do you have a number? And she said, well, the last number she called me off was this number. So I called that number straight to voicemail, left a voicemail. Then I called my aunt back and said, well, hey, that number didn't work. Do you have another number? So then I called that number, left a voicemail. The number called back. So I was like literally in my room. I was like, okay, let me breathe. So this is literally like, this could be my biological mother. Who knows? I don't know. So all of a sudden I pick up the phone and I said, hi, this is Danielle. She said, hi, this, who am I speaking with? And I said, biological. She said, what do you mean? And she started crying. She was like, you talking about my baby girl? Her birthday's June 10th? And I said, yes, it's me. And she was like, well, you just stopped me from committing suicide. And at that moment, I kind of just paused for a second because I was really at loss for words. That's how I know it was nobody but God. It wasn't that I was just sitting in my room. It was God speaking to me in a different way. Like, you know what, maybe you should reach out to your mom. This is something I've always wanted to do. This is the best time. So she's like, I just stopped myself from committing suicide. And I was like, just at loss for words, couldn't really say a thing. And then I just started talking to her. I was just like, well, I'm here. At the time I was 19. I was like, I'm 19 years old now. You know, just trying to engage in conversation. And at the time I was praying in my head too, like, God, like, give me some words to say. That's the last thing I need, for me to be on the phone and she decides she wants to commit suicide or something. I was just thinking so many different things. And basically we ended up talking on that phone for, I don't know, like 6 hours. that night. We were just talking and crying. I was sending her my prom pictures and all this other stuff, and that was it. Like, that was history. Eventually, I did have to cut off the conversation only because I'm to the point where, if it's not really making me happy, or I'm trying to grow spiritually, mentally, physically, and emotionally, she was causing a lot of toxic to me. So she was just saying a lot of off the wall things. So it was like, I was like, you know what? Unfortunately, I do have to let this conversation go. But when God is ready for us to talk again, then we will be able to talk.
Yeah, and I know that has to be hard, I can't imagine what you went through, like that emotional roller coaster of almost seeing your mom and then it not really working out. So, girl, you are strong. My next question is just like on a lighter note, is what can you tell other foster kids who may want to go to college so that they can provide a better life for themselves?
I would definitely say reach out to, I'm trying to think, I can't think of the exact name for it, but there are unlimited scholarships out here for us. And the first one, the top one, most people know about it, some people don't. We get a tuition waiver. So basically, I attend Prairie View University. My tuition is covered. The only thing that I don't even have to come out of pocket for anything besides, miscellaneous things. But that's how I pay for housing on campus. But other than that, like, everything is paid for through the tuition waiver. You have to basically give it to your financial aid office every year. And then from there, they know what to do. And you'll be like me, living loan free. And yeah, so just definitely look for scholarships, more scholarships, and talk to your foster care, not foster care, if you're adopted, talk to your family and see if they can get in contact with your caseworker or anybody that has anything to do with your previous history of life dealing with foster care. So that way, that's how you will find out how to get that foster care tuition waiver.
Okay. So you guys, there is a waiver for foster kids. You should definitely tap into that. And I want to talk about your parents now and how you found them or how they found you and what impact they have put into your life. Because you're thriving now, Danielle. You ain't missing no meals. You definitely got some jobs going. You definitely, not in no bad way, just, making something fun. But what is your current parent situation, and how did you get to the point where you're comfortable with them? You're meeting strangers and then you have to call them mom and dad potentially.
Oh Lord. So my situation, my whole life is really unique. So the last foster home that I was in, I was a cheerleader, and one of the coaches is now my aunt now. So my aunt, at the time, one of the coaches, she knew that my parents now were looking to adopt. So she also knew that the head coach, my foster mom, had me. So she was like, you know what? Hey, she would be perfect. So she told my parents about me. And basically from there, that's when everything fell into place. I know for the most part, Lord, when my parents first adopted me, I gave them HE double hockey sticks. And that was for about, 5 years. Like, it was a long process. But my parents being pastors, they kept praying for me. They never gave up on me. My family, now they had welcoming arms for me despite the different things I was doing, from fighting in school and just doing so many other crazy things. They just never gave up on me. So it's like eventually it was one day I was like, you know what? That's how I started getting into track and field, and that was my outlet. And so from there, once I started getting interested in that, you can't be in the office for getting in trouble. You can't do different things. And that was when, like, my 7th grade year, that's when I started changing everything around. And that's when I, really start falling for my parents. Like, I'm like, you know what, these people then took me into their house, like, considered me as their daughter. They're dealing with me out of everything that I had been putting it through. These are my parents. There's nothing that can change that. And so now it's like, I love them so much that on the daily, like, I appreciate you for every single thing you did and continuing to do. And they're really supportive of everything I'm doing. And yeah.
Yes, girl. And didn't you tell me they're a preacher?
Yes.
Right? I need you to tell the people what's going on, because I can't be telling the people. You got to tell them, Danielle.
I'm sorry, but yeah. So my parents are pastors. They are pastors at their own church. My dad has been a minister. I think they're going to celebrate their church anniversary on Sunday. This will be their 22nd year of being ministers. It's called Igniting God's Vision Ministries. Right now we're at a clubhouse where it's like Chimney Hill. We're at the clubhouse for that neighborhood. And yeah, so if y'all not doing that on Sunday, if y'all up in the Cypress area, feel free to come.
Okay. And I want to know, what are your future goals as it pertains to the foster care child system, and like your future goals after college? What can we find from you in the next 3 to 5 years?
Oh, so glad you asked this question. I'm already getting a head start with my foster care awareness success movement called Redeem, Survive the System. And that's my big thing. I want to make that more aware, because that is something that we really don't hear about. And if you really look into it and dig deep, you will find out a lot of things goes on. Like, there was a project that I actually worked on for my English class, where we just had to talk about something that was dear to me. And I did like a big research on this, and I found out so many things. Like, literally downtown area, there was a building, there was a foster care office where kids were actually living there because they didn't have nowhere to go. And it's just like, that really saddens me so much. So it's just like, with that, I said, you know what? When I get older, I want to open up a chain of community centers across the nation. I also want to open up foster care homes, foster care, like, hotels. I don't know. But as long as I can get that number of children down that don't have a home, that's my biggest thing, because I'm just thinking about myself. Like, for me, hoarding food, I can only imagine what's going on now. And that's my big thing, is that foster care system awareness. In my future, I am currently going to PVAMU University. I major in sociology, and I minor in legal studies, and my goal is to be a corporate lawyer. At first, it was a family lawyer, but after I got digging into that, it's not necessarily that there's something that I don't want to do, because I love children. And what I wanted to focus on was more so like the divorce and, anything having to do with kids along the lines of family law. That's what I wanted to focus on. But then my true passion is just business. That's something that I excel at. Like, literally with the track club, I created a constitution, a bylaw, business plan. And this is like, did that, and that's something I bank too. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and get into this, because I'm trying to be wealthy. And yeah, so that's basically it. So be on the lookout, coming to you soon, because I don't just talk about stuff, I actually make those things happen. So yeah.
Okay, Danielle, and my secret question. I think if you've been listening so far, and I just got to thank all 80 of you who continue to listen to every episode, I challenge you to like this podcast, to subscribe to this podcast, to share it with someone. But y'all know my $1 million question, and that question is simply, what does walking by faith mean to you?
Okay. So walking by faith means to me continuing to go when it gets tough, like just walking by faith. So I'm continuing. Okay, it's about to be my junior year. Things are winding down. I'm closer to graduation. So it's like, it's some things that I have encountered along my way at Purview University, but I can't let that hinder me from my own. I got to keep it moving.
Okay, so basically walking by faith means you just to keep it pushing. I normally end each episode with a Bible scripture, but something is telling me just to remind you all that if you didn't grow up with a father in your home, God is your father. If you didn't grow up with a mother in your home, God is your mother. You know what I'm saying? Like, He provides for you, He protects you, He heals you, He nurtures you, even when you don't even see it. Because a lot of us could be dead and gone, but we are still alive. Danielle, you are a walking testimony to us all that even though just being a couple months old, you are malnutrition, but you're still here and you're still thriving. I want us to bring more awareness to the child care and the foster care system, especially just like within the last few weeks or just last week, children were being separated at the border in Mexico, in the United States. And it's just like in those definite situations, a child could be put into the foster child care system and their entire life could be changed forever. And not everybody's story winds up like Danielle, where she can just say, I'm walking by faith and I'm going to keep it moving. Not everyone's story is just that simple and it's not that easy. And of course, we know that Danielle's story was not easy by far, but everybody doesn't have that same experience. So I challenge you today that if you know of a foster child, or if you are, if you are thinking of maybe adopting one day, or if you think that that's not really a need, and just really rethink that and remember that there is a need. There is somebody out there that needs a mom and a dad, and even though they may give you some HE double hockey sticks, they'll still appreciate the love that you could provide for them. So, Danielle, listen, where can the people find you on Instagram and, tell us where we can find you, girl?
Okay, so my Instagram is daily, lowercase d, AILYBANIELLE __. And that's my Instagram, Daily Danielle, because I'm always out there posting, different things. So I was like, sure. And my Twitter name is capital D, Daily, and then it's capital D again at the beginning of Danielle __. And that's my Twitter. And that's about it.
Thank you, Danielle, for your perspective on foster kids having faith too. If you want more content like this, make sure you give the Walk by Faith podcast a 5-star rating and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. You can follow me on Instagram at __ the pretty plug, and follow all updates on the podcast at WBF Podcasts. To those already supporting the show with a monthly subscription, thank you. If you're not already a supporter and you'd like to help make this show possible, tap the link in this episode's description or visit anchor.fm/jasmine-a-stith to become a monthly supporter. That's all, folks. Tune in next week for another episode on the Walk by Faith Show.